Brought to you by Atlassian, AI-powered collaboration software that makes the impossible possible.
Meet Brex, the world's smartest corporate card. Brex cards help 25,000 companies control spend before it happens, automate manual work, and earn more. With Brex, you can make every dollar count effortlessly. Learn more at brex.com/grow.
Brought to you by Williams. We make clean energy happen.
You think you might have to pay for on other streamers. I mean, there was a teaser campaign for the show Wynonna Earp, got like 600 million video views in 24 hours. I mean, they just really go after young.
That's a real show?
I know that's a real show. I've never watched it.
I think I saw it. It was like Wyatt Earp, but a woman.
That sounds fake as hell.
I could tell that from the title, Josh.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's a fair point.
I think it's a Western.
I didn't need to mansplain. Yes. So you guys know.
Yes.
Yes.
And they did a redesign. They did a brand redesign where you're like the color like just pops off on the screen as the app. I mean, as simple as that sounds, and it's paid off. Their U.S. TV viewing time grew by 70% over the past year.
Wow.
They've got 60% growth in the 18 to 34 demographic, and their share of U.S. TV time was higher than any other streamer in this same time period. So, in a world where we kind of assume that the giants rule, the Tubi's really carving out an interesting place, and thought that was worthy of an honor.
Is Tubi independent, or are they owned?
They're owned by Fox.
They're owned by Fox? Okay,
Yeah.
That makes sense.
God damn it.
There's the Ryan.
Just a little startup.
I'm kind of interested to see what happens with Mubi next year or so, because The Substance was a huge hit and got nominated for a Golden Globe and is an independent streamer.
Yeah, consider this a call to whoever works at Mubi to apply to brands that matter, because I do think that they've been doing really interesting stuff. They've bridged the sort of physical and digital offering in a cool way. Like, you're a member, you can go see their screenings, and obviously you get access to their streaming library. And The Substance, was a great example of how they've made that work.
Yeah, I mean, it's just...
Great marketing campaign behind that, too.
Yeah. So that's what I was going to say. Just a terrific marketing campaign for a pretty small company overall. That's like art house films. It's like they're like, no, it's niche. We're doing niche stuff and niche interests around these things. It's not like Netflix, which is like, you want to see desperate broken people try to find love?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, the answer is yes every time.
We got two left that I want to talk about quickly. Panda Express, go. Why are they on the list?
Panda Express, I mean, I love Panda Express. You know this. I grew up in a town where it was maybe the best Chinese food in town.
Wait, where did you grow up?
Santa Fe, New Mexico.
And that was the best Chinese food in Santa Fe, New Mexico?
Okay, well, shout out to The Walk.
Cue the cello. Cue the cello.
On Cerrillos Road. That was actually the best Chinese food. It is quite small. It's like 70,000 people.
It's true, but it's not like, you're in the middle of... Well, I guess
Don't
you are kind of in the
argue
middle.
with David about his hometown.
I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know why. I'm just surprised.
Is that I love Panda Express. But, part of it was around their Valentine's Day campaign. It wasn't even a campaign. It was an actual activation. They turned their restaurants across the country into date night spots. They did a 5-course prefix menu.
I wouldn't be mad.
They had a live violinist at a lot of these locations. And it just sort of like... they're like, hey, we can be fancy if you want. Like, we'll be your date night for Valentine's Day if you're a big fan of the brand. But they also had a lot of other exciting collaborations, including some, like, a chicken dish that involved a Hot One sauce that launched, like, fall 2023, and they just brought back in the past month just because the demand was so big for it to come back.
Last one I want to touch on. King Arthur. What's the deal?
The most exciting... Talking about C-SPAN being a boring brand. Flour.
Honestly, you would not expect this, and I liken it to sort of the fact that everyone thought that, like, the chess boom ended when the Queen's Gambit came out, and then they sort of roared back in 2023 and 2024. Everyone thought, okay, sourdough, we're in lockdown during the pandemic, everyone's making their sourdough, and then now that we're back in the world, everyone's sort of over it. But actually, in the past year, King Arthur recorded, like, a 75% increase in sales of its, like, pre-made sourdough starter. So they're just responding really well to demand by offering really cool products for experienced bakers or people interested in, like, regenerative agriculture. They launched a regeneratively grown whole wheat flour that we covered when it launched and also was part of this consideration. And then some like more amateur focused stuff, like a bread kit that like you can have this yeasted bread ready in like an hour. You don't really have to know that much about rising and folding and all that shit that real sourdough heads are into.
Is King Arthur also the name of the horny knight in Quinn? Played by...
They should collab for sure.
It is called the King's Guard.
God.
It's called what?
It's called the King's Guard. So
I don't think you want to mix erotica and yeast. I just don't think that's the best way to go.
Jesus.
Great place to end this segment.
Dear God.
Great place to end
Thank
this
you.
segment.
I'll see myself out. All right. Bye.
King Arthur is also reaping the rewards of years and years of solid brand investment in their audience, and that whether they've been doing content like books and video well before the pandemic. So when that hit, it's like you have this trusted kind of cult brand. That investment over so much time in their audience and just being such a resource as well as quality product is like paying off, continuing to pay off, as David said, beyond, the sourdough craze of the pandemic.
So I recently bought some salt, like Morton salt. You have to replace it like once every like 12 years or whatever. And they had a link to their Instagram, and I was like, is this a branding story we should write about? And it's totally not. It's actually weird because I swear they had 600 followers and now they have 15K now that I've checked. And I feel like some of those might be bought. But I'm here to say that it is actually quite difficult to build a brand from a grocery store product. Based on my investigation,
you did a lot of work on
hard-hitting
that.
investigation of Morton Salt.
Real shoe leather journalism there.
Yeah, that's 30 seconds of Googling.
Yeah.
That's what we call investigative journalism here at FC. I know I did shit on
Pulitzer incoming.
King Arthur when we started, but I do use King Arthur in my baking almost exclusively.
It's good.
It's a really good product.
Well, this was great. Thank you both so much for coming on the show. We'll be back with Jeff and David for keeping tabs, but first, a quick break followed by Josh's interview with Second City creative director Tyler Dean Kempf.
G'day, we're Atlassian. We make team collaboration software like Jira, Confluence, and Loom, which power enterprise businesses around the world, including 83% of the Fortune 500. With Atlassian, you'll unlock AI-powered teamwork, which means more time doing the work that matters. In fact, our customers experience a 25% reduction in project duration per year. So you'll have more time to listen to podcasts. Unleash the potential of your team at Atlassian.com. That's Atlassian.com. Atlassian.
Have you heard about Brex? It's the world's smartest corporate card. Finance leaders love it because it's got powerful controls and rewards that help them make every dollar count. Here's why Brex cards are so smart. You can embed your expense policy inside the card. This lets you control employee spending before it even happens. Brex cards also automate manual expense tasks like receipts, memos, and reviews. So you're freed to focus on optimizing your company finances. Over 25,000 companies take every dollar further with Brex. Join them at brex.com/grow.
Okay, we're back. And Josh, let's get to your interview with Second City Works creative director Tyler Dean Kempf, which does sound like a fake name. I'm not going to lie.
It's not a fake name, but it is a very much a name that's like, oh, you're an improviser. You're a theater, you big theater kid energy, which is after my own heart. I'm a theater kid. So Tyler and I chatted actually at the Fast Company Innovation Festival this past September. He's been an improviser for 2 decades plus, and he runs Second City Works, which does a number of things, but a big portion of their work is basically improv classes for corporate teams. So think about like corporate events, offsites. We have workshops about improv.
You would kill it at a Fast Company improv class.
Oh, I would clown on all you fools. So I talked to him about how workers can and should be thinking about adapting to change. That's all really what improv's about. And this is especially important as there's a lot of anxiety around the influx of AI tools, and we really have to change in the workplace. But first, because I have to make everything about me, we started about talking about my former life as a college improviser. I'll have to admit, I do have a little bit of an improv background. I was on a college team called the Rowdy Rams at the University of Rhode Island.
I love it.
and I did this really weird touring children's long-form improv show called Stories on Stage.
I love that.
That was a new mystery every single, it was like a half-hour format.
Where was that based out of?
It was in New England. So
Okay.
I'm from Rhode Island originally. So we toured around libraries in southern New England.
But that stuff's so important. Like, I remember there's a children's theater out of Missoula, Montana. Called,
Yes.
You know Missoula?
Oh, my God. Yeah. So my wife runs a theater company here in New York. I'm a theater kid, obviously, with the improv background as well. And then I transitioned after college into journalism and podcasting. It just became my thing. But I auditioned for Missoula's Children's Theater when I was I think I was a sophomore in college.
I love it.
Yeah, I didn't get it. I didn't get the job.
Honestly, it might not be a great gig, but...
Everything I've heard confirms that it's not a great gig.
I'm just trying to name names. But, but that was impactful for me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Having them come through and being a part of that production for a week.
Yeah.
I knew that I wanted to maybe do that because I'd done one children's theater thing before.
Yeah.
But being a part of that was like, oh, yeah. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
So from 7 years old on, there was no other passion for me that was as big as theater.
Yeah.
Because of those opportunities of like what you did in libraries. So what you gave gifts to all those kids.
I wonder if any of those kids went on to... I actually I did a lot of children's theater work. There was a Rhode Island, it's called Rhode Island Youth Theater now. It was unfortunately named when I worked there Fantasy Works Youth Theater, which they mercifully changed after a while. But yeah, actually some of those kids went on to be like on Broadway and doing
Amazing.
stuff. And I set aside the part of myself that's like, fuck these kids. I wanted to be on Broadway.
Honestly, like when I see friends who are, that either students that I taught at Second City or in college when I taught in college, or just peers of mine who are on the Emmys or winning Emmys and stuff, and I point them out and I'm like, look, and my husband's always like, well, good for them, that's great. And I'm just like, hey, if I can let it go and be happy for them, but he's very supportive and very protective, so I appreciate it.
So let's talk about AI actually, because I just took your workshop at Fast Company Innovation Festival, which was 20 minutes across town, and I think we both just trekked over here, and I'm sweating
bullets. It's not even that hot out.
No, it's not.
It's the
but
humidity.
It's just the humidity, and I had a backpack on, and my back is just drenched right now, which is, this will get cut out of the podcast, but, or maybe not. My editors don't like me, so.
I grabbed a lift because I didn't want to.
Yeah.
I had a suitcase too.
Doesn't matter.
No, because the driver wanted to have the windows down, and I was like, are you kidding me?
God.
I'm a big guy in the back seat. Oh, man.
So your workshop was wonderful,
Thank
and the kind of impetus behind it was, I think, a lot of fears and anxieties around AI. So I think everyone's mind immediately goes to a few different examples, but do you remember that Apple iPad ad where all of the creative technology gets crunched, and it's like, you can do it all on the iPad? And I think it was actually a perfectly innocuous ad from Apple, but every creative was like, no,
it was the timing.
How dare you do it? The timing was terrible.
Yeah.
So much fear and anxiety. So in your line of work as a creative director, working with brands, working with companies, working with creatives in the corporate field, what would you say to someone who's like, I'm terrified for my job because of this AI revolution?
For me, as a creative, I believe that the thing that differentiates any content that can be created in AI versus what a human can create is human emotion. AI does not understand human emotion, cannot create from human emotion. And the best stories, whether they be epic tales or ad campaigns, are rooted in human emotion. We get to travel the world and help people in every level at any industry focus on storytelling skills, presentation skills. And the thing that we're always coming back to is, who is the character at the center of your story? And what are the emotions they are feeling right now? And what are the emotions that they're going to feel after your solution that you're presenting has been implemented? That is the story arc that we want to follow. And at the same time, who is the person you're presenting to within this story? Are they that hero? Are they the Obi-Wan Kenobi, that person who is supporting the hero to get there? Like, what is their archetype within that structure? And playing to that audience, meeting your audience where they are, creating a story that's going to impact them emotionally as well.
Yeah.
And AI just cannot do that. And so for me, it's about absolutely validating any emotions that people have around that fear and understanding that we need to set healthy boundaries with the people that we are working for, within our industry, with our peers. But we also have to yes and the moment and understand that AI is here. And so rather than only screaming and yelling about no, how are we accepting the reality in front of us and then building upon that reality with authentic curiosity to understand how these tools that exist in the moment can positively impact our day-to-day workloads.
Yeah.
Not in that creative space, but in the work that isn't creative. And that's the path that I went on.
Yeah.
Is learning how to utilize these tools to make it so that I can take the menial tasks and shrink the amount of time I'm spending on those.
Yeah.
So I can look at that time that I've saved and focus on how I can better use that time, not on more menial tasks, but either on the creative work or being a better human to other humans in a time when we are really bad at that.
I don't think we've seen a technology revolution, particularly in and I hate this term, the knowledge economy, quite like AI. I mean, obviously the internet's been around since since the 60s technically, but in earnest since the 90s. And we've seen these huge technological changes come in, and people inevitably get left behind in some respect. So I think there's two parts of this is, yes, don't be necessarily afraid of it or accept those fears and move forward. But like, how are you coaching people not to get left behind? I mean, you talked a little bit about that. Let's have the menial tasks be taken away. But like, what does that actually look like in practice in a workplace? And how can the skills you impart to people apply to that?
So Second City Works is the business-to-business division of Second City. We exist to instill the skills of improv into people who are going to apply those skills in the workplace or in their personal lives, mostly in the workplace. So we've been doing this for 40 years. And we've gone through a lot of technological changes within those 40 years, and we're going to continue to go through more. But at the heart of it, through and through, is social skills and how we connect with each other. I can't coach someone on how not to be left behind, but I can help people tap into their skills to be more adaptable, to be more agile in the moment, to look for those opportunities for growth rather than letting their lizard brain take control and moving into that fight, flight, or freeze mode. That is when I feel people can be left behind. Now, we only have control over what we have control over. But if we allow ourselves to lean in to those opportunities, we can find those opportunities to evolve in that space so that we are not left behind.
Let's talk a little bit about Second City's work, because it's 65-year anniversary with Second City, 40 years of Second City's work. How long have you been at Second City?
I've been at Second City since 2011.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you've seen quite a bit over your time. What is the biggest thing you're looking forward to in the future with Second City and Second City Work? 65 years in, constantly changing and adapting over time. What are you looking forward to?
The cool thing about what we do is that what we do on our stages doesn't really change at its core. It is sketch comedy created through improvisation in collaboration with our audience. That is what we have always done. And it's all based and rooted in the work of Viola Spolin, a social worker from the early 1900s in Chicago at the Hull House, where she created these exercises to help immigrant children who spoke different languages communicate and collaborate with each other. Her son, Paul Sills, took that to the University of Chicago and put it into the theater space and created what became the Compass Players, using improv to create content. And then that shifted 5 or 6 years later to become the Second City. And it has been that way for 65 years. So that component of what we do on our stages will never change because, again, it's created in collaboration with our audiences and with our performers who themselves are evolving with the times. What we do within Second City Works, it hasn't changed that much in that capacity either, but how the themes that we are asked to come work on or speak on are constantly changing. For example, right now, the major topics that we are constantly getting asked to come and work on with organizations is communication across generations, right? We now have more generations in the workplace than we've ever had before. And no matter which generation is coming to us to say, we need help here, it's often, how do we make them work the way we do?
Wait, I want to dig in on this because I think maybe this is just being a prisoner of the moment. It feels like we're at the most divisive intergenerational moment in quite a while, maybe since like the 60s, 70s, like flower child era, where it's like we all hear the okay boomer stuff, Gen Z's in the workplace. We have the same old like, oh, these lazy kids sort of thing again, but it feels like it's at a fever pitch. How do you actually approach that?
So we actually partnered with the University of Chicago at the Booth School of Business and the Center for Decision Research a handful of years ago to co-create what we call the Second Science Project. And in that project, we explored the intersection of applied improvisation and behavioral science around communicating across differences, which on college campuses right now is prevalent. And in fact, we have a program that we take to universities to implement into their orientation programs to help incoming students better understand how they can proactively communicate with people that they have different opinions with on college campus. And that's not just for students.
Yeah.
That's for faculty and staff as well. And there's exercises that we created in that we're implementing now that allow people to try on skills that are beneficial in those moments. So if we're doing improv exercises, those are pretty low stakes, very fun, engaging. You participated in them earlier today, but the conversations that come out of that around the skills that we use to be effective in that exercise are how we can pivot and talk about those more serious topics. So in this particular moment, we find that if we come to a conversation where we are not in agreement with somebody, we're not necessarily looking to agree with them, but if we take a moment to tap into our empathy and our authentic curiosity and ask questions to better understand someone's lived experiences, to understand the why behind their perspective, I may not agree with you, but I better understand the human that I'm talking with. And there's been scientific papers come out that state that even if one person in a conversation utilizes that ability to show gratitude and empathy before sharing their perspective, the other person will mirror it without even realizing it. And it mitigates that tension that can exist in that moment.
That's fascinating because so much of, the pushback that I think you hear in the college campus thing is like, obviously there's some like moral panic around this stuff that's not necessarily based in reality, but then there are very real differences that take place in communicating. But the idea that the onus is on one person to present with, take the high road, to put it in a small term. I think there's a lot of pushback to that from people saying, well, why do I have to be the one that takes the high road? Why do I have to do all the work in this situation? That's a really interesting counterpoint based in science, that presenting that approach really does like pay it forward in a lot of different ways, which is really interesting. And I think goes back to these core tenets of improv, of listening and responding, to which, unless you're a clinical narcissist, you're naturally going to do to some degree as a human being anyways.
Right. If is my intention to convince you, or is my intention to appreciate your perspective?
Yeah.
When I shift my intention, I'm able to have a more neutral conversation around a difficult topic. And again, while we may not come to an agreement on a particular topic, we may be able to find common ground where we can move forward together. And this is not just in very, very high stakes conversations or topics. This can also be when you butt heads with somebody that you're collaborating with on a project. So that's the work that we can bring to people and help them understand that communicating across differences, or even how we provide feedback as a leader.
Yeah.
When we approach those with a more improvised mentality or improviser's mindset, we are able to create an environment of trust and psychological safety so that we can continue to work together in a time when we may not agree.
That's amazing. One last question. I'm going to give you the floor. Why should people take a Second City class or work with Second City Creative Works?
Ooh, I love that. Thank you so much. It's so difficult to explain what we do because we do so many things, right? We focus on learning and development in the corporate setting. We put up corporate events, live events, improv shows, sketch comedy reviews. We create video content. But when we get to travel the world and I get to see people have that aha moment, it reminds me that when I tell people what we do, we get to travel the world and teach people to be better human beings. And at the core of any problem that anybody's facing at work, it's a human problem. And so we need to focus on the humans in this moment.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Tyler.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
As clean, reliable energy demand increases at historic rates, one company is uniquely positioned to accelerate America forward. Williams. We have 116 years of know-how in powering progress, and we're ready to power the next 100 years of innovation. Learn how our natural gas infrastructure is critical to power the future of AI and electrification at williams.com.
Okay, we're back with Jeff and David, and it's time to wrap up the show with Keeping Tabs. This is where each one of us shares a story, trend, or bit of pop culture we're following right now. And Jeff, since you're our guest, what are you keeping tabs on?
Thank you for asking. I lived up in Canada, and in my area of Canada on the East Coast, it just started to snow. And whenever it starts to snow, I just really start to get the itch to slide sideways down a hill. And when I start thinking about that, I need inspiration. And I got my start in snowboarding magazines. So my keeping tabs has been really diving into actual physical magazine. They're still alive, called King Snow. My buddy Jesse Fox edits it, and it's run by my friend Ryan Stutt, but not because of that, because they really found a niche to keep a print publication alive, while also online having like gear guides and all kinds of short films, just where to go to get the best snowboard video clips and the perfect place to kind of fuel that snow stoke that I am all about right now and can't wait to start snowboarding.
I thought that you were talking about grabbing a plate and sledding down a hill for some reason. Like when you said slide down a hill. Yeah. I was like, what? He does that all the time? That's what
we do up here, Yaz.
I was like, Canadians are crazy.
That's well, thanks for keeping tabs, Jeff. I know you have to run, so you're going to head off.
You're dismissed.
Thanks for being on the show, and we will move it to David.
Peace.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, David.
Bye, Jeff.
David, what are you keeping tabs on?
Something I've been keeping tabs on is something I've been working on a story on forever, but the Brands That Matter launch sort of has waylaid it a little bit, is
classic.
This music compilation from this organization called Red Hot. And people may recognize that. It's been around since the 90s. It started as like an AIDS charity thing, and they put out a compilation in 1990-ish called Red Hot and Blue, and then people of my generation, you might remember Dark Was the Night, that huge compilation with people from the Shins and Death Cab for Cutie. It was definitely of a moment.
Yeah.
It was very much but that also raised money for HIV/AIDS charities and stuff. And this year they have put out a compilation a few weeks ago at the end of November. It's called Transa. It is like a 4-hour compilation of covers and original songs that feature a lot of trans artists. And
they could have done better than Transa, but sure.
It works,
name-wise.
you know.
I'm not as... It's fine. It's a fine name.
And it sort of started as a project sort of in the aftermath of Sophie's death and just wanting to honor trans people's contribution to music, which has actually been pretty lengthy, like an early sort of pioneer of the synthesizers, someone named Wendy Carlos.
Hooked on Bach. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a cool compilation. It's 4 hours long, but it doesn't feature some stuff like an original flute thing by Andre 3000 and some stuff from Sam Smith and Laura Jane Grayson. It's just a cool, fun, important thing that's happening right now.
Josh, what are you keeping tabs on?
Wow.
Going completely in the other direction.
Completely bored by that.
No. Wait till you see what I have coming.
Oh my God. Yeah. So a lovely, nice, serious thing that David shared, and now I'm going to turn us to the Hawk Tua beat, the Haley Welch
hell
beat.
Yes. All right.
I love how we've all started calling it Hawk Tua instead of Hulk Tua.
I mean, it's so wild. When was that original video that Haley Welch was featured in?
Feels like yesterday and 3 years ago.
Something.
It wasn't that long ago. And the Haley Welch journey has been wild. I mean, naturally, she kind of had to was popping up on other podcasts. And then she got her own podcast, which was like, okay,
Talk to
of course, Talk to her. But then the most recent left turn is her launching a cryptocurrency, like a memes stock cryptocurrency called Hawk, which launched a little over a week ago. And like quickly, its market capitalization peaked at like 500 million, but then promptly crashed to 25 million. And I think it's sitting at like 7 million now or something like down. And people are basically like, yeah, this is a scam, right? And it's like,
good for her. She worked at a spring factory.
Yeah, if I worked in a spring factory, I'd do everything I could to get the fuck out of the spring factory.
No, that's fine. Podcasts get all that. But like, I'm a little worried about the cryptocurrency because I don't know if you know this, but crypto people have had a tendency to end up in prison and
speaking
arrested.
Of which, buy our coin.
Yeah, we're launching the MIC coin. You can buy this on Robinhood. But actually, the thing that I really want to talk about is, have either of you seen Talking Talk Tua?
Yes.
The satirical after show, reaction show to the Talk Tua podcast? It's so funny.
It's amazing.
Basically, the way to describe it is like, it's a very earnest satire of a reaction show to Talk to where they like very seriously break down each episode in detail, but it's like, it's obviously comedy and satirical and playing against it, but it's so committed to the bit. It's actually these guys they've kind of blown up and this has gone well. They made like 200 episodes reacting in the kind of a similar way to like Mr. Beast content before. And these videos were getting like 800 views and they were doing so many of them. And then Talking Talk to starting to blow up. They're getting real views.
You just need to commit to the bit. That's what we learned from that.
This is what it pays off. Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours. These guys really applied.
It's true. I've definitely gotten clips of them. It's very funny.
It's very funny.
Haley Welch refers to her boyfriend as Pookie, and they're like, now here again, Haley's engaging in Pookie revisionism. She's got these huge glasses of wine. It's amazing.
It's so funny. Yaz, what are you keeping tabs on?
So I read a headline this morning that cracked me up. It's from the New York Post. Curious passenger leaves flight crew perplexed by getting hand stuck in airplane cup holder.
I'm sorry.
I'm
sorry. Can you read that one more time?
Curious passenger leaves flight crew perplexed by getting hand stuck in airplane cup holder.
What airplane has a cup holder?
So I think when you pull the tray down, there's that little hole. I think he got his hand stuck. His name is Abraham Delore, and he let his intrusive thoughts get the better of him.
Man, things just keep getting worse for Boeing.
And the flight attendant was completely puzzled, though he did manage to free his hands after several minutes. And who among us has not thought about doing this?
Honestly, this is something that would happen to you, Yaz.
Yeah, 100%. But getting a New York Post write-up about this is so funny.
Clearly, there's not enough stuff to gin up right-wing outrage about today.
Because that is 100% something I would do. I had this argument with Luis about, like, armrest etiquette on planes.
If you're in the middle seat, you get both.
That's what I said too, because I was in a middle
that.
seat and this guy on our flight from Houston to Charleston was like fighting with me for it.
No.
Each of them gets the one on the end.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, I'm glad we all agree on this. It's official. He was also playing YouTube videos at full volume next to me. So
that is
so he belongs in jail.
Yeah.
I think we should start. I mean, I'm mostly against carceral punishment, but antisocial behavior like that
for like 2 hours, just jail for a couple of hours.
Yeah, like put them in the penalty box.
Yeah.
Yeah, penalty box is not used enough in real life. Like adult timeout.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. Anyway, all this to say, if you are in a middle seat, armrests are fair game. If you are thinking about putting your hand through a cup holder, just know that you could end up in the New York Post for it.
And that's the news you need to know today.
Good luck, Abraham Delore.
Wow. Full name, too? Wow. That's rough.
Sad.
Oh, man. That guy's going to have a tough time getting a job.
I know. I would hire that man immediately if I saw that on his resume. I'd be like, you're one of us.
Abraham, email Jay Christensen.
And that's it for Most Innovative Companies. Jeff and David, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Our show is produced by Avery Miles, Blake Odom, and Miriam Kiparoitse. Editing by Matt Toder, mix and sound design by Nicholas Torres, and our executive producer is Josh Christensen. Remember again to subscribe, rate, and review, and we'll see you next week.